Today's episode of the Riderflex podcast is sponsored by our friends at Truman's, a company that's taking the clutter out of cleaning. Seriously, have you ever noticed the hundreds of single-use cleaning bottles filled with toxic ingredients at the store? Well, Truman's is fixing all of that with a lineup of non-toxic cleaners and refill cartridges. Check them out at trumans.com. And on today's episode of the Riderflex podcast, we have guest Tricia Halsey. She is the co-founder and executive director of the Big Idea Project. And she's the founder of Generous Leadership Challenge based in Colorado. All right, here we go. You're not nervous, are you?
I was low energy, so I had to get coffee, which is contributing to my overheating right now, but I'm good. I don't think I'm nervous.
No problem. Tricia Halsey on the Riderflex podcast. How you doing, Tricia?
I'm doing great. It's good to be with you, Steve.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. I appreciate our good friend Lori Jones and her team over at Avocet Communications introducing us. That was nice of them.
Yes. Yeah, they're a wonderful team over there. I love Lori.
She's been on my podcast. I think you were on her podcast. Has she been on your podcast? I don't know. There's a lot.
She's been on my podcast. Yeah.
Very
it seems
good.
kind of incestuous. I guess everyone's moving around to podcasts. Lori's great.
It's great. Yeah. I appreciate them introducing us. So are you in South Denver today?
I am. I'm in South Denver. Mm-hmm.
Littleton area?
Uh-huh.
Very good.
Littleton.
Okay. So before we get into Generous Leadership Challenge and your career, let's talk about Tricia and her, who she is as a person, some stuff about your personal life, where you grew up, some family things, where you went to school, all the parties you went to at Pepperdine, all the good stuff.
Okay, sure. So I grew up in Seattle area, Washington, outside of Seattle.
Okay.
And as soon as I could, I'm an only child. As soon as I could, I left the house and headed to Southern California for college at Pepperdine.
Nice.
All throughout growing up, I was a swimmer. That was probably my main identity. I was a USS swimmer, and that's all I did. So in high school, I would swim 3 practices a day, 1 in the morning and then 2 in the evenings, plus a dry land. So that just gives you an idea. Dry land is like weights.
I see. I was just about to ask you. I don't know what that means. So did you go to Pepperdine on a swimming scholarship?
I did.
Nice.
Yeah. But I stopped after my first year because I decided to graduate early, and you can't go 3 years of college and be an athlete at the same time. So unfortunately, I didn't get to reap the rewards of a scholarship. But yeah.
Now, why did you want to do that? Why graduate early? What was the strategy there?
Well, first of all, Pepperdine is crazy expensive. And now I think it's like now 20 years later, it's so expensive. So that brought the cost down.
I see.
But I just wanted to get going. I wanted to get out into the world and start my work. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew I needed to go.
Now, so tell us about your parents. What'd your folks do? Do you have any siblings?
I don't. I'm an only child.
Okay.
And my parents are both, they just retired. So they moved out of Washington, but they are both microbiologists by trade.
Whoa.
So grew up with scientists, and I went and majored in English. I was the little rebel. I hated science.
So I can just see it in high school. And your dad's, or did they try to kind of push you to maybe major in something, in college that related to what they did for a living, or no? There was no push.
I don't think they pushed, but my dad always told me you could be anything you want to be. But
that's cool.
I do think he was pushing me to figure it out, though. And that took me a really long time. I remember he took me to a college fair when I was in the 7th grade, and I had to walk around. I was by far the youngest person there. And I'm like, what am I doing? And I think since I can remember, he was telling me I have to go to Annapolis or West Point. That was like his favorite. Those were his picks, And I'm like, No, I'm not going there. So I don't know if it was to be a scientist more than I'm going to figure out your path and I'm going to push you on it. So I had to find my own way for sure.
Where did he go to school?
I think he went to UC Davis. He was in the Army too during the Vietnam War.
There, I was trying to figure out the tie in there on why he might want you to go to West Point. Okay, gotcha. All right, I can see now. It all ties together there. So was he the tough one in the tough one on you, and your mom was a little more passionate and caring? Okay.
Yes.
Your dad's gonna listen to you. Your dad's gonna listen to this, right?
I would say that I don't know if either of them are passionate people. They kind of just go, they're just even keel. But my dad was the tougher one, and my mom was the nurturing one, and she was the one who would schlep me to all of the practices.
So when you didn't win a swim meet in high school, and you came in like third, what happened? When you came over to the side, and your dad was there, would he be like, just kind of not hug you, not saying, like, what would he do? I'm just curious.
He wasn't hard on me like that, but do you want to know a funny story?
Okay.
He was a judge. I forget what they're called. Like a DQ, disqualification judge who would walk the sides during they wear all white, so you know who they are. And my dad is 6'7" and just a big guy. People used to think he looked like Hulk Hogan. He had like the mustache with the thing at the bottom of the chin, but he was called the Terminator, and people were afraid when he was there because he would DQ them, disqualify them. So but he wasn't too hard on me.
Now I'm having a vision of the first young man that came to your house to take you out on a date, and he had to meet your dad. He's like 6'7". Like, oh, your dad's gonna kill me.
Yes. So coming out of, it was actually just a friend. He wasn't a boyfriend, but coming out of the house, he shook his hand, and he couldn't stop looking at his arm. And he told me that after we walked out, he's like, I can't stop looking at your dad's arms. They're bigger than my legs. He loved to scare.
Wow, that's pretty good. Oh, that's pretty good. I appreciate you sharing that with me. Okay, so you said you majored in English?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and so when you were a senior, well, I guess in your third year, you're getting ready to graduate. Didn't know? You're still like, man, what am I going to do?
At the time, I thought I was going to be an English teacher in inner city Los Angeles, and I was going to go get a motorcycle, and I was going to be able to like get through the traffic to get to Compton or wherever I was going to work. And they called me Michelle Pfeiffer, because that was the time of Dangerous Minds.
There is a resemblance. Yeah. Now that you mention it. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That was my intent. Not to be Michelle Pfeiffer, but to teach high school.
Cool.
And it didn't work out. I actually had a pretty crummy education teacher towards the end of my college. And I was like, I don't want this anymore. So, but that was what I was known for. And then I graduated. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I went into youth work for a little bit and hung out with kids and invested in them before I got married and came out to Colorado.
Okay. How'd you meet your husband?
Well, my husband was in Los Angeles as a football coach for UCLA. So he had just moved up from San Diego and was the GA, the graduate assistant for the defense. So I think he worked with the linebackers at UCLA. And we had a mutual friend. My roommate was his friend. And she's like, you need to beat this guy. And
now, see, you just run that for you just run that for me. I was thinking he was on the sidelines and you were in the stands, and he was like, oh my God, I got to find out who she is.
Right. Thousands of people. No, but he did pursue me, and he wooed me within 5 months. And I don't think that man got more than 3 hours of sleep a night, because he would work, 15, 14-hour days, just really long days. And he'd come over and we'd hang out for 3 hours. He'd go home and sleep for 3 hours. So
nice. That's good. Yeah. That's a good story. How about kids? So kids?
We have 2 children. We have 2 boys, Noah, who is 11, and Micah is 9.
Ooh, you're like right there before the puberty starts. So right. You're like,
I'm preteen. Yes.
Yes. Ooh. You don't have much time left.
Oh, I know. He's already showing signs. We've been prepping, and we've actually been quite afraid of teen years. And so for the last 4 years, we've been telling him, promise us that you won't get too moody, and we're going to have all the food that you want, but make sure that you tell us when you have emotional issues. And so we've been prepping him for 4 years. And I think he's a little bit more vulnerable with us than maybe if we hadn't been doing that. So I'm hoping it goes okay, but at least he doesn't jump off roofs or do really impulsive things that some other boys do. So we'll see. I'll let you know.
Is he rolling his eyes or anything yet? Is he kind of like, oh God, you guys?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, it helps that it helps that your husband's like a huge physical, dominating kind of presence, right? So he's like
My
6'7".
husband, that's my dad. My dad's
Oh,
six
that's
seven.
right. That's right. Sorry. Yeah.
My husband's actually quite small for a football coach. He was a quarterback, and then
Oh,
at UCLA, and then when we moved out to Colorado, he was a football coach at Columbine High School.
so that's how you got here. That's how you got here.
That's right.
Ah,
Mhm.
gotcha. Okay. All right. And is that what he does now? Still
No, he
coaching?
quit coaching when I started Big Idea Project, the first organization about 7 years ago. He kept coaching for a couple of years and realized I needed a lot of help. So he quit to kind of open up his time to be, he calls himself soccer dad. So when he's not teaching, he's picking the kids up and he's taking them to places. And
Great.
so it frees me up to be who I need to be.
Well, that's a
Mhm.
that's a perfect segue right there into your career. So, okay. All right. So you come to Colorado because he gets the coaching job, and walk us into your career and how that kind of flows into Big Idea Project and Generous Leadership Challenge. Go ahead.
Oh, that's a big question. I'm going to
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Give us the career overview.
Yes, yes. So he got the job at Columbine. I entered graduate school for leadership and was there for a couple years. And he was teaching also at Columbine, not just coaching. He taught
Okay.
in the, and still does teach in the business and leadership department.
Okay.
And after a couple years, this is kind of, I'm going to intertwine Big Ideas
Go
Genesis
ahead.
with me, but after a couple years, he realized business isn't leadership. And I told him, business is not leadership. You need to teach your kids leadership. They can learn marketing all day. They can learn how to, these different business. He had like entrepreneurialism and all of these, but he didn't have leadership. And he went to the district, which is one of the largest districts at the time, and said, "Can I teach leadership?" And they said, "Sure, we don't have a leadership curriculum. No one's ever taught leadership." And so I took what I had been learning in my master's program in leadership, and we created the seed of what was Big Idea Project, and that what is Big Idea, and that lived in his class for 6 years. And so he was kind of he
Wow.
was just watering that seed. And I mean,
Wow.
literally he had a piece of paper that was his whole curriculum. I mean, it was just, have you seen that movie? Pay It Forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what he would do. He would stand in front of the class and he would say, "I want you guys to go impact a life, and then tell me how you did it. Go solve a problem, and then let's report out and see your results." And so that kind of started like that. And as he
Nice.
was doing that, I went and worked in international. I was a program director and an executive, not what is the word? Deputy director. So second to the executive director in an international nonprofit, working with Indigenous staff in 5 different countries. Then from there, I went to a COO for a startup who did consulting and mentoring within companies. So how to use mentoring to cross differences, gender, global, and what was the other one? Generational. And then from there, I went to another COO for another startup that did curriculum design and delivery. You'll see a pattern here. I was kind of the one who would take their ideas and make them actionable, put them
I
into,
see.
but then I realized I wasn't a COO. I wanted to start my own thing. And it was at that time that the demand was bubbling up for Big Idea Project from teachers in the community. And I said, I need to start something that I can lead. And it was such an obvious, it was just, I just fell into it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we started the nonprofit, which has been around for 7 years as a nonprofit and 12 years as that class.
Wow. Congratulations. I see how it all ties together. How many employees at Big Idea Project now?
We are very small. We have 4 employees, but we have
But that,
about 250 mentors.
that,
We do a lot of contractors. School coordinators hit the schools, probably about 15 school coordinators.
okay.
Lots of stakeholders involved in Big Idea, and this little team runs this massive ecosystem that's getting into 5 districts across the Front Range in Colorado.
I just can't believe I never thought about it, but you're right. Going through high school and college, I never took a quote leadership class. I mean, I kind of knew that I was a leader just because it just naturally happened, right? Whether it was captain of the intramural sports team or I was like an RA in college, and just it just happened. There was no class. There wasn't a class. I
Right.
probably would have been a heck of a lot better leader if there were a class, back then. But yeah, there
I
wasn't.
think
So
a lot. I think a lot of MBA students would be a heck of better leaders too if there was
yes.
leadership in their programs as well, because it's not generally in business programs. It's starting to. Some of the business programs are really focusing, but they might just put one class in the entire MBA
Mm,
program.
mm.
So
That's interesting that you guys got that going there, and that there wasn't. Okay, wow. All right. So from there, then talk to us about Generous Leadership Challenge. Give us the elevator, the elevator pitch real quick on it. Go ahead.
oh gosh. So
You're on.
generous.
No pressure or anything, but you do the elevator pitch.
Well, can first I'm going to give a little bit of context. Generous leadership was the concept, and we own the IP and the trademark to generous leadership. And
Nice.
that has been owned for 7 years since we started Big Idea Project. And Big Idea has been in schools teaching this framework that I created. But Generous Leadership Challenge didn't start until COVID-19 came, because it was because of a solution that came that we created in the schools. I had people saying, you must launch this to the nation. You must give this to the world. And so the
Okay.
Generous Leadership Challenge is a multi-week experience for businesses, families, schools, and individuals to really take on intentional action so that they can shift their mindset around leadership. And generous leadership is a paradigm, not a style. It's a way of seeing and understanding the world around you. I define it as be a generous leader is abundantly giving of yourself so that others may be better people who do better work. And you cannot manufacture that. It comes from who you are. And so that's why it's a paradigm. You have to see and you have to believe, and from your belief comes your behavior. And generous leadership has 3 lenses:
Okay.
seeing yourself as valuable versus worthless, seeing people as people versus objects, and seeing your work as sacred versus ordinary. And so the GLC, the Generous Leadership Challenge, takes people through those 3 lenses to shift the way that they think and believe so that they can become generous leaders that people love to follow.
That's a nice overview, by the way. Good job on that pitch right there. That was nice. I like it. That's pretty solid. Walk us through the business. How's the business model work? So is it, and who's your client? Talk to us about that a little bit.
Well, this is different. So the Generous Leadership Challenge is
Mhm.
new, and it launched as a gift. So there's no business model to it right now. It is a gift to the world, and it is funded by impact investors who write off the loans. It's not even a payback. It's just investing in a social good so that the people in America can start really
I,
investing in themselves and their families. So that's the route. That's where we're starting. And now companies are starting to take it on with their employees, and they're seeing a lot of results. I have other school systems, because right now Big Idea Project is only in Colorado. So we have other school systems across the nation who are really interested in using it. So I believe it will be the pipeline to future consulting and expansion for generous leadership in business and in education and in families. But that does not exist yet right now. It's just a free gift to the world.
I see. So Big Idea Project and Generous Leadership Challenge, they're both nonprofits. Is that
Nope.
accurate? No, they're
Generous
not.
Leadership Challenge is a for-profit that is funded by impact investors who would rather see social impact than return.
Mm,
Isn't that cool?
that's like somewhere in between. I don't even know how to describe. That's cool. All right. I
Isn't
like it.
that neat? It's generosity. It's just an incredible vision.
Is
Right
that
now,
the
that's what it is.
is that the same tax write-off for them that a nonprofit donation would be? How do they do?
Nope. True generosity. True generosity. They don't even want to return. They don't even want to write off. Isn't that amazing?
Well, I'm trying to figure out my next question based on that.
Maybe I
like
should bring
like
them on
like
and you can
like
interview them.
like what? Okay. Wow.
Isn't
I mean,
generosity, it's like generosity can be so mind-boggling, and I think it's one of the most powerful things that we have in humanity. Just I just think it's so incredible, so inspiring when you see a true generous heart, which is the whole point of generous leadership, is how does a leader give of themselves for the sake of another person?
Oof.
And
Wow, that's pretty
that's the
powerful.
leadership that changes the world. And we're flourishing, it's flourishing companies, it's flourishing families. And those people tap into potential that they never knew was even there to begin with. And that kind of
Wow.
leadership maximizes to a point that, I mean, it's just mind boggling. So generosity is really at the core, you know?
I'm amazed that you put that together. I didn't even know such organizations existed, right? That where people would just give money without some sort of benefit back to them, right? Whether it's a tax write-off or marketing or something. I don't mean to sound cynical. I'm just like, okay,
Isn't
I've
it
never heard of
amazing?
that before. Yeah, it's great. I'm really amazed that you put that together. Okay, so the funds are
It
provided,
will make money, by the way. It will make money someday. That's just the genesis of GLC and the
but
gift right now.
these people that are giving the money to get it started, they don't have equity. They're not getting equity.
Nope. The initial is just a forgiven loan.
You are the best cash raising person I've ever had on the podcast. I'm going to tell all the startup entrepreneurs that are trying to raise cash. I'm like, oh, look, just call Tricia Halsey. If she can talk people into donating money without any kind of benefit whatsoever, you need to talk to her. Wow, congratulations. I don't guess you can tell me how much you've raised or what you're on target for or anything, can you? Can you share any details?
Well, I'd rather not for them,
Okay.
but
Okay. Okay.
it's small compared to a startup. If you're starting up a tech company or something, right now it's mostly a marketing campaign,
Okay.
getting the brand out, getting the word out. So
Okay.
that's where Lori comes in. Lori's team that you mentioned at the very
I've
beginning
right.
is our team. We have a team of about 7 people through Avocet that are blasting this nationally,
Nice.
going on, news shows and so
Oh,
forth to tell.
okay. So I was pushing you on the business model. Let's get back to what it actually does for you as a leader. So, all right. So who's your quote client or customer? Is it Riderflex, my company, and our leadership team to come do this multi-week course? Is it families? Is it teachers? Is it all the above? Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I think where the confusion lies is that it's not a course and it's
Oh,
not a program.
okay.
It's just a framework. So I love small to medium sized businesses. So
Okay.
perhaps it's you guys, and you
Okay.
go on to the website and you say, I need something to facilitate deeper growth within my team and something that allows for authentic conversation back and forth. So you would go to the website and everything there is free right now, the whole framework. And it's just guides on how you would guide them through. We recommend a 7 to 8 week experience, but business owners, families, anyone, you can make it whatever you own or whatever you want it. And that's the beauty of it, is this open-handed generosity of, I've been sitting on tools that are life-changing as we've been doing them in schools. And now it's time that others have them. And someday there will be a more robust program where they can have me come in and do some consulting and training. And I have so many ideas around that. But right now it's just truly a free gift. And it's all on the website, generousleadership.org. Even though it's an LLC, it is for profit. Now I'm really confusing you.
That's okay.
So yeah, you can just go there and access it. I
Well,
give you an example.
all right. All right.
There's a company here in Denver. They're called Footers Catering, by far the best caterer. I don't know if you've heard of them or not, but they're amazing leaders nationally in the catering space. And they have been using this with their team. And every week they come together and they talk about their goals around how are they taking care of themselves so that they see themselves as valuable. How are they serving one another and the people in their communities so that they're changing the way they see people, not objectifying, but humanizing, which is so, so important right now. And then how are they finding meaning and purpose in their work? And they come together and they talk about these things. And I'm hearing that they're getting amazing results. One guy has stopped smoking, and the team's coming around each other and keeping one another accountable. But as you can imagine, as a business leader, that kind of topic isn't really accessible in a typical meeting, right?
Right.
And
Yep.
now they're talking about it and they're growing closer and they're better for it. The team is stronger and therefore they can accomplish more than they were before.
Is the material in the framework, is that the same stuff that is being taught in your husband's class? And is that where, is it all kind of the same, or I guess it grew from there? I think that's what you said earlier. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it was started under Big Idea Project. Well, with Big Idea, I've always owned the IP separately.
Okay. Okay.
And it is the same framework, those three lenses and the paradigm, and how to move people through is always experiential, and it's leaning into challenge. Those are all the same pieces. But Big Idea Project is like the program. So a
I
school
see.
would have us come in and we have much more robust teaching, and we train teachers, we put people on site, we measure students' growth. The students go out and they solve problems in the community. And then as they're doing the hardest work that they've ever done in their lives, the teachers are turned into coaches, not content masters.
Mm.
And they coach the students through paradigm shifting thinking as they do this experience. And then the kids present their projects and their results for the chance to win a scholarship. So it's a very robust program, but our focus isn't the social good that comes at the end, though that's amazing. We love it. They're going out and they're helping homeless. They're doing campaigns for human trafficking. They're stopping bullying in their schools. A lot of mental health, because suicide's so bad here in Colorado, teen suicide. So they do these amazing projects, but the goal is the growth of the person.
I see.
And that's this major paradigm shift in education.
Now,
right?
now, if I put the Riderflex team on this framework, is this everybody on the team, or is this just people in manager level positions? How would I
Whatever
do
you
that?
want to do. Whatever you want to do.
Okay, and
Yeah.
I want to hit you with a couple of things here. These might be tougher questions.
Oh,
You
okay.
ready? Okay.
Yeah.
My first reaction, I want to tell you what, this is just a straight up honest reaction to what you just
Love it.
told me.
Go for it.
As I studied your website and I studied you and I pulled up all the little YouTube videos you guys made, which I think are great. Now that you just told me that you're not involved and you're not leading any classes, and I don't get to talk to Tricia, and you're not like leading us through something, I immediately lost some interest. I was like, oh, well, I just have to do this myself. That's not as exciting for me. I don't know. That's because your passion comes out in the videos that you made and when you're talking about it. And I was thinking, wow, listen to her talk. Like, okay, are we going to go, like, is she going to like lead us through some stuff? I want to sign up for that. That's how I was feeling. And
Well,
so,
that's next phase. So I'm really happy to hear that, actually. But
okay.
this initial first phase really was in the context of COVID-19. And as families went into their homes and businesses were, remote and in their homes, how could we use challenge
Oh,
to grow and become better instead of be
oh,
fearful? Right. So it was
ah,
this opportunity to shift mindset, and still is. And this will continue. I think it will be an annual thing that we will hit for the GLC because it needs to be
ah,
accessible for everybody. But yes,
ah,
there will
ah,
be additional consulting.
okay. All right. I see. All right. And eventually you're going to have to charge for this.
Yes, there
Yeah.
you go. That's the business model.
Almost the same strategy as the person who gets a following on Facebook and Instagram for, I don't know, coffee cups they're making, and pretty soon 5,000, 10,000 followers. And they're like, oh my gosh, how do I order those? And then the person's like, oh, and then okay. You're getting it
Yeah.
started. This is your jump start phase of getting some attention, some attraction, some following. I mean, by the way, your YouTube channel has more hits on it already than mine does, and it's only like 2 months old or something.
It's not even. I think it's like 3 or 4 weeks. We havened. We
3 or 4
just launched those videos.
Okay, Lori Jones. Lori, if you're
Yeah,
listening,
right.
you're gonna. Riderflex needs a boost on that, by the way, because I just noticed Tricia's got more hits than us in like 3 weeks. Great, if she's the one that's been leading that. Okay,
There she is.
very good. Let's talk about real quick then leadership in general, just leadership. I've been in a leadership position my whole life. I ran a couple of $40 million companies as the CEO and COO and president. And so I've just been leading people forever.
Yeah.
What advice would you give the old timers? can't believe I'm referring to myself like that. The old timers like me who like, because there's going to be former CEOs like me. I'm just telling you, there will be. They're going to be like, I've been leading people for 35 years. I don't need to take, there's no framework that's going to teach me anything I don't know. What's your message to those guys, guys and girls?
Yeah, I mean, you could keep going as you are and not get better. Or you could get better. I think it's important to look at the people around you. Take a really, really honest look. And are they flourishing? Are your people, do they love coming in and working every single day? Do your team meetings, are they just abundant with brainstorming and ideas and voices are being spoken? And then, and even I think more telling indicator is, do your people's families flourish? Because we always bring work back home, right? The impact of a leader is so far reaching, more than we realize. Leadership is powerful. And so if you take a really honest look, and I can guarantee you, I mean, unless they're living in the Garden of Eden or something, there's no everybody is not fully flourishing, right? So how do we get better? And it's a lot of what Simon Sinek is talking about too, although we started before he did, before he was really big, by the way, in schools and Columbine. But which Columbine, after the tragedy, we were under that leadership of Frank DeAngelis, and the motto at Columbine was give generously, receive graciously. And that was our genesis in that context. But anyway, it's this concept of how do you win the hearts of the people who follow you? Because they might follow you because of your competence. You're a real competent leader. You have the skills. You can organize and get things done and help them go from point A to point B, which is essentially leadership. How do you move people from A to B? But if you can move them from A to B and they have given you their full heart and loyalty and they are in it, they will give extra time. They will give extra energy and effort. Their families will flourish and be behind them. Like, how can we help you do this? Because you are called to this. You find purpose in this. So it's a matter of being okay to being excellent, like that level 5 kind of leaders. So
that's solid. That's a great answer. That's a great answer. By the way, I knew I was going to ask you that before the podcast. I kind of prepped that question. And that's a great answer. You answered it very well. I was saying to myself, I just know you get into bad habits. If you've been a leader for a long time, you get into this routine and these certain habits and certain ways of doing things, and you don't step back, or you don't pull back and kind of look in the mirror and go, oh wow, that's how I'm leading meetings. I didn't know that.
Right.
And so it is good to call time out, I think, and look at some things. And if that means going through Generous Leadership Challenge, and it will jog your memory. Maybe it won't be anything new. Maybe it'll just be like, oh yeah, well, I haven't done that in a while. I need that. I need to do that more. So that's good. Very good. How about first time leaders? How about somebody that is listening to this episode and they've always done a great job at their task, and all of a sudden they're a manager for the first time, and they got 8 people that report to them. And by the way, they were just promoted. It was like, here you go, here's your team, right. and nobody, which is how it happens most of the time, right? You get stuck into a manager level position. You're like, here you go, manage these 8 people. We're not going to train you on how to manage people at all, but here you go.
I wonder, I'd love to get in a conversation with you about that too someday, about how managers become managers. Because
right.
there is sometimes you want the leader. Some people have it in them and they don't have to spend 10, 20, 30 years working their way up. And then you promote that one who's been there for 20 years to management, but it's not in them. It's not their skill set. It's not who they're supposed to be. So anyway, what would I say to these first-time managers? First-time managers, well, managing is different than leading. So they're going to have to go learn up on management skills, right? Because that's a whole nother thing. Leadership is earning the hearts and moving people from A to B, getting them from one point to the next, and setting that vision and setting that path. And leadership must be authentic. People are really good at detecting BS. And so if that first time manager who's also in a leadership role tries to pretend they are somebody that they're not yet, the people will smell you out, and
Yep.
they will call you out, and either you'll see the crumbling of your team, or some people have seen kind of anarchy, like it kind of undoes behind them. Somebody's poison in the well a little
Mhm.
bit because they don't
Mhm.
believe in you.
Right.
And so I would say do the hard work. And it starts with really a lot of self-awareness and reflection of who are you right now? What are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? How are you showing up? And then having the courage, being brave to just say, this is who I am. And I'm not necessarily where I want to be yet, but where I want to be, I want all of us to be. So let's get there together. We're going to form together. And so it starts with self-awareness, and the generous leadership challenge and generous leadership paradigm is just fundamentally about using challenging experience to shift who you are, a deep level change, and then using reflection as well. And the power of reflection, and every leader who's stuck in a rut generally cuts reflection for the first, that's the first thing they don't have time for, and it's actually a very, very powerful tool, and increases productivity. If we can just do 15-20 minutes at the end of every day in reflection, and productivity studies have said go way up. So it just
Totally
gives
agree.
this framework for that deeper level change and self-awareness and togetherness and ability to practice authenticity and just be who you are. I can give you an example. Yesterday, I was actually in my team meeting, and we were celebrating the anniversary of two of the people on my team. And I didn't want to do business as normal. I just said, hey, let's take out a piece of paper, because it's been a difficult year for everybody. So let's take out a piece of paper, and I want you to map out some of the milestones and the growth that you experienced this year. And then you're going to share it, and you're going to be in the hot seat. So you're in the hot seat, you share all of this growth and all this, and then we're going to speak into you what we see. And we're going to see how you grew. We're going to also tell you who we see you to be that we don't think you've tapped into yet. And it's this idea of calling out. And there were tears. And I can tell you that actually all of them, they said, but one guy, he was like, I've never been in a workplace where the leader creates the space to just be better.
Nice.
And he said, you have created
Nice.
a refining fire. He said, this is a refining fire, and we're better for it.
Ooh, was that his line? Was that his line, refining
Yes.
fire?
Yes.
I like that. That's pretty good.
It's the power of generous leadership.
I like that. Very good. Thank you for sharing all that. One of the, I was thinking of a line you said, it's just not it's not in everybody, right, to be a leader. I had a mentor tell me a long time ago that your dad would love this line. He said, hey, Steve, he's like, listen, great soldiers don't necessarily make great lieutenants. You know what I mean? And so on that note, just real quickly, how can people better identify that? I think a lot of times superiors make mistakes. They end up promoting great soldiers into the lieutenant role just because they shot the gun well, or they worked the battlefield well, and now all of a sudden they have to lead troops, right? Using that analogy. How do superiors make better decisions there? Any quick advice there? I know it's a big question, but
yeah, I've got one.
Okay.
Two pieces actually. One is your first instinct is going to be how productive and effective are they, but do not do that before you look at EQ. So your emotional intelligence is actually first and foremost the most important thing, because if they cannot connect with other people, they will not lead other people.
Totally agree.
And that's really hard to train. So
it really is. Yeah, it really is.
The second piece of advice I would say, and this is going more towards the framework, a lot of people can pretend that they're confident and that this is a true confidence, not an arrogant confidence. Just, I know who I am and I love you and I want you to come with me, versus someone who's just talking the talk. And I always listen to the I am statements. So that's identity statements, and they don't know it. So it's like I'm not smart enough for this, or I'm a bad mom, or sometimes it's I'm not enough. I don't have enough time. It's a lot of actually Brene Brown stuff too, of the not enough. And so are you bringing somebody into the role who is scarcity minded and has a distorted sense of their identity? Because that's going to trickle down to the rest of the team.
How many times did I say I am so far in this interview? Do you know?
I don't know. You can have really great I am statements,
Oh, I probably said it a few times. Let me, so I'm looking at, okay, I have like 8 minutes here before wrap up. Let me ask you, by the way, we could talk for another hour. We could just keep going. I'm running out of time already. So before I forget, before I ask you my wrap up questions, let me just make sure everybody knows generousleadership.org, generousleadership.org, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can also connect with you on LinkedIn, I guess, right? Tricia
Mm-hmm.
Halsey on LinkedIn. Anything else, any other websites or any other contact information we need to share here for the listeners today?
There's a webpage on generousleadership.org that's about the founder. It says how you can connect with me as well on
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. All right. So a couple of wrap up questions. If you could, Lori probably told you I was going to ask these, right? So you may
No,
be
I
prepared.
have no idea what you're going to say.
She didn't? Okay. If you could call the young lady coming out of Pepperdine, like right before you graduated, 2 weeks before you graduated, and you could tell her anything today, if you could call her right now and tell her something, what would you tell her?
Mm-hmm. I know exactly what this would be.
Okay.
Everyone has their thing, right? And so for me, my Achilles growing up was this thought of I'm alone. I'm
Really?
alone.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And I was always the misunderstood one. I was the leader, but felt alone and misunderstood. And
Interesting.
so I would tell her, you're not alone. You're not alone. In fact, I have a gift of gathering people. And in the gift of gathering, I still mindset wise thought I was alone, and I was surrounded by hundreds of people. And so it's the power of mindset again. Just you're not alone.
Interesting that you mentioned that. This goes deeper, right? We could talk more about your parents and how you grew up and affection and all these things. I mean, that's a deeper. I'll bet you your two sons get 10 times more affection than you got growing up. Hugs, kisses, whatever. Is that accurate?
Yeah, my son is so addicted to hugs. It's actually a little bit overbearing. he gets and gives them all the time, but yeah.
That's pretty good. Okay, last question. If you could put your core purpose in life into a sentence, and I pushed you to step away from the boys and your husband, and let's just set that aside. Kind of, let's just assume that is your
Yes.
core purpose. So aside from family, how would you describe your core purpose in life professionally?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So my purpose is to help people become who they already are.
And they just don't know it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
Are there a lot of leaders out there that they just never had a chance? They never stepped into it. Potential leaders, a bunch of them, and they're miserable. What do you think?
They're miserable.
Because yeah,
Yeah. Go
are
ahead.
there people out there that they're miserable in their current role because deep down they wanted to be a leader, or they could have been a leader, but they just never were given the opportunity, or they never stepped into it?
I think so. That's the I am statements of I'm not enough.
Mm,
Yeah, I think, well, to some extent, some degree, each of us is a leader. I lead my kids,
right.
everyone leads their family. They might lead their neighbors in a certain way. We all have influence. But when it comes to the leaders who are meant to move large amounts of people from one point to another point in a very inspiring way that creates change. I know for me, I was an incredibly shy kid, and I was an unlikely leader, and I'd fall into positions, didn't know why I was there. Now I know it's because people trusted me, and they saw something in me.
Mm-hmm.
But if it wasn't for the coach, and it wasn't for the people in my life who saw that and called that out, I wouldn't be where I am today. So it speaks to the power again of leaders, because if there are hidden leaders, leaders make leaders. So where was their leader in calling them out and placing them? Where you're called to find, equip, and place leaders. That's a leader's role.
I couldn't agree more. So, for example, that coach you had, that swim coach you had in high school, was a powerful influence on your life. And if he hadn't helped mentor you, right, maybe things would have been different. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, but it was. He certainly sped up my ability to see myself and the way that I viewed leadership. He told me that I'm here to make you a better person first and a better swimmer second. And
That's a
it's
good
that
line.
concept of being and then doing. And of course, I was good at swimming and he wanted me to do well and to win, but I did even better for him than any other coach because he focused on that order of things. I was safe with him. I felt appreciated and congratulated. I was pulled in, to almost a fatherly at that point
Yep.
figure. And so I think people are longing just to be seen and to be called out, and in a safe place. That's my team saying, this is a safe space that you've created where we can be who we really are, and find that,
I think it's important for people to hear you and understand that, we do all make an impact on people. I think it's easy to move through life and move through your daily activities and chores because you're everybody's kind of knocking off their list for the day, right? Whatever that is. And you forget that you're actually having a major impact on people's lives as you
Yes.
touch them, as you speak with them, the things you do for them. You're having a major impact on people. And I think it's important to remember that. And you spoke to that several times during the podcast.
Yes.
Tricia, thank you so much for being on the Riderflex podcast and sharing your story and all the advice and wisdom. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was a fun conversation. Well done.
The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviews. Our show can be heard just about anywhere these days, but you can visit riderflex.com and click on the podcast page to hear all the previous episodes and learn more about the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Contact us at the email address info@riderflex.com or 888-964-5876. Thanks so much for listening, and if you enjoy our show, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes.